Nice. Okay. Cool. Okay, let's continue. So we left off on this woman here. And honestly, I think we're just gonna move on. But as you can see, the most important thing here is the curve. So now that I'm actually looking at this woman and at the figure, I think she might not have as much of a curve as she does, right? So if any of you guys, drew a curve that was kind of like this, and now you look at your figure and you look at her, and yours might look a little bit too stiff or something, definitely just round out that curve. Okay, that is the most important part. Okay, the back leg. So once we have this knee in and we have this knee in, might be a little bit too far. But once we have both of these knees in, the back leg, so this is where it becomes a little bit tricky because this is what's known as foreshortening. The back leg is going all the way to the back, right? But because it's stretched out, our minds want to trick us and have the leg go out like this way, okay, when it isn't actually doing that. So if you, once again, because we got kind of lucky with this model and she's sitting on a horizontal plane, you can find this angle that the back leg creates, right? And you can kind of just copy it. So this is more or less the angle that it creates here, this one. So you would just draw the back leg in the same way, going that same in that same direction. Okay, and figuring out where that leg ends. Once again, what we did in the previous classes, we found where the back leg was, and we kind of just drew a horizontal line going straight across to see if it intersected with any other features that we've already drawn in. So in this case, it intersects right with this point, which means when we find this point in our drawing, okay, so here is our hip line. If her legs go something like that, like her thighs, then we know that the back leg ends somewhere in this vicinity. Okay, and it's a lot smaller than you're gonna want to make it. Okay, this is not how it looks. But don't be alarmed by the fact that you're, drawing a very small leg, because that's actually how it's supposed to look, even if it looks wrong. Okay, always check where things end, where things intersect, and the angles of which it creates with other aspects of your drawing that you already have established. In our case, this horizontal plane that she is sitting on. Okay, and obviously from here you start to render, right? You draw in the arm where it ends, right? And then you check to see if this negative space matches this negative space. Obviously you draw in all of her features. I can see that her arm is not as thick as it should be. And obviously this area does not go like this, but it goes into her breast. And actually her breasts make a line kind of like that. So go ahead and follow that line so that you know exactly where everything should be placed. Okay, and you continue in that same manner. All right, so let's move on to our next one. See, today's class, I just want as much practice with this as possible.
Alika, there is another question for you. How would you do the back leg? Margaret asking.
Oh, I just talked about that. Yeah, I saw
okay,
the question in the chat.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so I'm gonna flip this over. All right, so let's draw this man right here. So this is obviously more of a complicated pose, but the fact remains, everything you do is going to be the exact same. Okay, we are going to start by finding the shoulders, which are almost like fully horizontal. And then we're going to find the spine, which comes down like that. Okay, I know that it's kind of dark here and you can't really tell what's going on, but if you use the light that's coming from underneath his butt, you can actually tell where it begins and where it goes into the spine. Also, if you looked at the photos that if you have those photos that I sent, which are also in color, it's a little bit easier to see. Okay, so I'm going to do exactly that. Let's see. His shoulders are kind of on this curve. Okay, and I'm actually, before I do this line, I'm going to find where his butt ends. Okay, where I want to place that, and then where I want to place his feet, just so that I know where to end my curve. Okay, so I'm going to place his butt right around here. Okay, and so his feet, as you can see, the distance between his butt and his feet, it looks like it's larger than it actually is, but it's very, very close together. So they're going to be somewhere around here. And actually, where his butt ends, I'm going to use this curve as my marker. So this point right here. Right, if I draw a straight line and then I use his heel as another point and draw another straight line, you can tell how far away from each other they are. So if I say, for example, his butt will end like somewhere here, then I know that his heel is going to end more or less somewhere there. Oh, let me make this darker so that you guys can see. Something like that. Okay, I might change this later. Who knows, maybe I'm wrong. But for right now, we're just going to leave it like that. Now I'm going to add his supporting arm. Actually, I'm just going to designate its space. So I think I made the shoulders a little bit too wide, but that's okay. I'm just going to draw in his arm. We can see that where his hand is placed, it is very, very close to where the bottom of the butt is, just a little bit higher. So it's going to be right around here. And so I'm just going to leave it like this, right? This is his supporting arm. Okay, and now I'm just going to make I'm not going to make the spinal line yet because it's a very drastic curve, but I'm just going to give his body an overall lean in my drawing. Okay, it's not going to be the center spine, but it's going to start from the shoulder. And I'm just going to try to copy it as best I can. Okay, it's going to be something like that. Now I'm actually ready to make this curve. So I'm going to do my best to copy it. Okay, and now that I've copied it, I can see that his butt ends a little bit too far out. So I'm just going to erase that and bring that closer. Of course, his foot is going to be brought closer as well, since we have just decided on that. Okay, now I'm going to find this kind of triangular shape that men especially, they have this like Dorito shape going on in the back, especially men that are very muscular like this guy is. So I'm just going to find that shape. Okay, something like this. And let's see, we got to find where his hip line is. So if you just kind of take where the bottom of his butt is and the top of his shoulders and find where his hip line is, it is a little bit more than halfway down. Okay, so you kind of just divide everything into sections. So this is halfway, it's going to be somewhere around here, and we're going to bring his leg out. Okay, this leg is practically perpendicular to any vertical line, right? It's going on very, very straight. Okay, and compared to the bottom of the butt, it might be a little bit too high, so I'm just going to lower that slightly and just add this diagonal line that his body makes. Okay, something like that. Right now, I am going to find that if the back of his heel is right here, I'm going to erase this one so we don't get confused. If the back of his heel is right here, and his knee is over here, just let's see how far away from one another they are. They're not very far at all. So if the back of the heel is here, that just means his knee is going to be somewhere around here. Okay, and this way you can just find this diagonal line. And once again, just like we did with, where is she? This lady right here, we use this horizontal plane to find all of these different angles. We can use this horizontal plane to find this angle. Okay, so if this is our horizontal line, our angle is going to be something like that. Okay, now his top leg just kind of comes out back here and once again into this hip line. And let's find his neck. His neck is gonna go somewhere here. Obviously, it'll be in the middle of the ends of his two shoulders. And as you can see, it makes that curve. So the spine obviously comes up high, like into your neck, right? It needs to hold up your head. So it makes that kind of curve, and we can tell that because his ear is right over here. Okay, so I'm just going to draw that curve in, and we can tell that his head comes out that way. Now, if we find, for example, his elbow is right around here, and it's practically where this kind of fold is right there. So if this is where our fold is, our elbow would be here. See, now that looks wrong. And I'm actually going to show you what I did wrong here. Once again, if we use our negative space, right, this negative space right here, and compare it to the one in my drawing, this line is way too long, and this one is way too short. And so now I know that I need to bring this down and bring that out a little bit like that. Okay, and this is just the process that you go through. And now my elbow is a lot more believable in here. Okay, and from there you can figure out where you want to place things. Okay, once again, if your knee is over here, let's, just start drawing in different parts, seeing if they fit correctly. If it looks like it's way too long, which I believe my figure might actually be, you start to fix it based on different cues. So now from here, what we would do first is measure his head, how many heads go into our work, how many heads go into this work, compare, see if you elongated it too much. You can also do the same thing. You can measure his head here, and then from the far left point to the far right point, so the edge of his fingers and the edge of his toes, you can measure how many heads go into this figure horizontally, and do the same exact thing here, and then start figuring out what you placed differently. But this should be the first minute or the first 2 minutes of your drawing. Okay, we can, if you look at this, you can tell that this is exactly who I'm drawing, even if it might not be fully accurate. Okay, this is where all of our previous lessons come into play, where you start really rendering it and trying to make it as accurate as possible. Yeah, do we have time for one more? We could. If I move quickly
10 minutes.
enough, we can do one more.
Yeah, 10 minutes we have.
Yeah, let's do a fun one. Let's do this one. She's very bendy. So the first thing that I would do here is I would find her shoulders. So her shoulders kind of go like this. She's hunched over. Here, so that it's not confusing, and so I can bring it closer to my work. There, her shoulders are hunched over, and they're not very wide, right? Let's find this line right here. Here, I'll draw it like so. Okay, I'm gonna find the line of her breasts because they're pretty even. So that's actually right in between the shoulders and the hip line. So it's practically cutting it halfway, more or less. And I'm going to find this main line that goes through her belly button and in between her breasts into the middle of her neck. And as you can tell, if you look at the figure in total, this half is a lot larger than this half. So with that in mind, I'm going to draw in that line. Okay, now I'm actually just going to draw in this line over here. Okay, and I'll do the same thing here, although this one kind of comes out a little bit more dramatically. Okay, and so the next thing that I would personally do is I see that her knee is right below this line. So I'm just going to place it real quick because that way I know exactly how this leg goes. It's going pretty vertically down. And it comes up in this way, right, to kind of create that V. And the butt comes through this way. Okay, something like that. Now I can see that this leg goes on a diagonal here. So it comes out a little bit lower than the knee. So I'm going to draw that in. There, and it kind of ends a little bit past where the butt ends. So it's going to be kind of something like that. Obviously, the butt makes this kind of curve because it's sitting on top of that knee. And then the leg comes out right behind. You can see the foot, the heel is right, it's so close to where the butt is. So it's going to go something like that. Now this arm, here's her shoulder. Like this, what's that called? Like the crease that's on the other side of the elbow comes up right around where the hip line ends. Okay, and her arm is holding on to her foot. Okay, and this shoulder comes in pretty far into her torso since she's hunched over. Okay, so this arm is going to come out. So the way that you can guess this angle and that angle, you can kind of just draw a horizontal line for yourself and find this angle yourself. All right, so if I draw a horizontal line, I want to match that angle. Okay, and if you look at her hand, where it ends around where this waistline is, okay, that we actually didn't draw in, but that we mimicked right here, showed that this is where that crease is. So her hand ends on that same plane, which means it comes up pretty high. Okay, and once again about foreshortening, this arm is foreshortened, so it looks a lot smaller, and our brains want to make it larger since we know that this half, the forearm, is approximately the same size as the arm itself. Okay, so don't be fooled. Okay, once again, after all of this, figure out this negative space and this negative space, do they match? Same thing here. Below the breast, actually, if you want to draw in the breasts, we found the line for them earlier. So if you look at this one, it actually perfectly mimics her shoulder. So we know exactly where it's supposed to go. Okay, and it does end right at this line. And this one comes out right there, and there is some negative space in between her arm and her breast. So put it in there. The neck comes up right around here, and her head comes in here. Okay, and so now after you draw this, you go ahead and measure, see if you got all of your proportions right. Okay, and then continue and go ahead rendering it. So that is our class for today. Does anyone have any questions? I know this was a very loaded class. I just wanted to go over the very beginning of drawing a model and what you should be doing in the first couple, like 2 to 5 minutes. And go ahead and, rewatch all of our previous lessons and, find where, how you can measure all of these body parts in relation to one another to make sure that everything is proportionate.